Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. Andy Ruiz Jr. goes into this fight with Anthony Joshua on June 1st in New York with nothing to lose really. Drafted in at short notice, I think many people just expect that Anthony Joshua, the unified champion, should be too big, too strong, should be able to beat him either on points or stop him at some point during the fight. I myself think that Ruiz Jr. probably gets stopped, maybe rounds somewhere 5 to 8, something like that. Although it's heavyweight boxing, who knows what can happen here. But Ruiz Jr., who is he, what's he about, and how good is Andy Ruiz Jr.? Because I think that's a little bit of an open question. I'm seeing a lot of people pushing a case here that Andy Ruiz Jr. is a top 10 fighter at this point in his career. I'm not sure the facts actually back that up, and I think if people are being honest with themselves, how many people actually had Ruiz Jr. in their top 10 ahead of this fight with Joshua being announced? Because Ruiz Jr. has been highly inactive in the past couple of years since his first title shot against Joseph Parker. He lost a close majority decision, Joseph Parker getting the decision in New Zealand on his home turf. It was a very close fight. I myself scored that one a draw on the night. Couldn't really separate them. But that's the thing. Joseph Parker, at that point in Ruiz's career, was the best name by far that he'd ever faced. And when you look at his actual resume, it's actually a little bit light heading into this fight with Joshua. And that's not to say that he can't fight and that he's not a good heavyweight, because clearly he is a good heavyweight. And I noted a few people got their nose out of joint when I sort of compared Ruiz Jr. and Dominic Breazeale in a previous video, effectively being on about the same level, which is around the top 20. In my view, I don't think that's unfair to place him there or thereabouts, given what he's done in the past couple of years, because looking at the resume, before Joseph Parker, not a lot there. I mean, you've got Josh Gormley, Ray Austin, Sergey Lyakovich, but that's not exactly, top tier opposition. Since Joseph Parker, you've got a journeyman in Devin Vargas, journeyman in Kevin Johnson, and took Johnson to a decision. And then you have Alexander Dimitrenko, and that was most recently, that was back in April. And actually, that may be, looking at Ruiz Jr.'s resume, Dimitrenko might be his best win on his record. And some people who were getting upset about Dominic Breazeale and Andy Ruiz, the comparison, were saying that Ruiz is levels above Breazeale. But when you look at the record and what they've done, even though Dominic Breazeale kind of eats punches with his face, and we saw that again with Deontay Wilder, he actually does have something on his resume. You have Eric Molina, Izu Agono, Amir Mansour, Fred Cassie, Carlos Negron. The weight of that resume compared to Ruiz's, I think it actually stacks up favourably in Breazeale's favour. But both those guys have been horrifically inactive in the past couple of years. So I think while we know that Ruiz Jr. is a decent heavyweight, I don't think we've actually established where he's at in the heavyweight division because he's been so inactive, hasn't really done much of anything since the Joseph Parker fight. So this fight falling into his lap, it really is a winning lottery ticket, because he would have had to, under his new arrangements with PBC, he recently left Top Rank, joined PBC, the Dimitrenko fight was his first one under the PBC banner. He may have had to had 4 or 5 fights to really get back in a position to challenge for a heavyweight title, because in the scheme of things, in the mix of the heavyweight division, Ruiz Jr. was kind of on the outer, a bit on the fringe, so this has come at a very opportune time for him. He can take this, get paid several $1 million, and really he can just go for broke. I don't really see any downside for Ruiz Jr. in this situation. But can he win? Well, that's certainly another story. But for people to be turning around and dogging on Dominic Breazeale, saying that he's nothing and Ruiz is so much better, I think that does ignore some of the reality of the situation, of their records, but also the activity and what they've been doing. I think for Ruiz, he is a guy that's got a lot of potential that's gone largely unfulfilled. And this could be the opportunity for him to stand up and really make a mark in the heavyweight division, really leave a piece of legacy. Facing Anthony Joshua on such a big stage for so much money, so much hype, so much prestige, really this is a life-changing, a life-altering moment that's coming up on June 1st. So it's all there for Ruiz. But he goes into this as the guy who many fans expect to be beaten. he goes into this fight with a few disadvantages to Joshua, who is 4 inches taller, but also has an 8-inch reach advantage. And that's going to be a bit of a disadvantage with Joshua, the bigger man, able to work the jab and keep Ruiz at the end of it. And a key to this fight is, what can Ruiz do to try close the distance, try get inside and get his work away? Because as everyone keeps noting, it's sort of when Ruiz Jr. is talked about, he's got fast hands. That is one of the attributes that has been pointed out pretty much ad nauseum. Whenever Ruiz's name is mentioned, that is mentioned alongside it, fast hands. So what can he do to try actually use those fast hands to try do something to outpoint or even stop Joshua? It's going to be a tough challenge, you can't doubt that. But it's heavyweight boxing, these guys can all punch, so if he lands something flush on Joshua, he can certainly hurt him. And Joseph Parker has spoken before about Ruiz Jr. being the hardest puncher that he's faced. But to be fair, he never took anything flush from Anthony Joshua, so when fighters say these sorts of statements, unless they've really taken clean punch for clean punch, it's a little hard to sort of examine the statements and compare the two. But Ruiz Jr. hurt him in their first sparring session where Parker underestimated him. He saw this guy who didn't look the body beautiful, he was sort of shadow boxing in slow motion, and they got in the ring. And then Ruiz Jr. unleashed his fast hands, caught Parker unawares by surprise, and hurt him to the side of his mouth. And as Parker said, he ripped a sort of little hole in his mouth. He couldn't eat for 3 days. So we know Ruiz, if you give him the opportunity to land, and he does land, he can do a bit of damage. So Joshua can't underestimate him. But at the same time, there's been this vein of commentary among some fans that Ruiz Jr. all of a sudden is now a top 10 heavyweight, that he's proven to be a top 10 heavyweight, and that a contemporary of his, Dominic Breazeale, is nothing. And that whole narrative of Breazeale being nothing, well, if that is the case, can Joshua take any credit from his win over Breazeale? It does cut both ways. So I do stand behind those statements that Ruiz Jr. and Breazeale, based on what they've been doing, their activity, they're on about the same level, around the top 20, just inside. But certainly he has an opportunity here to do something, and do something that could really make his career. Because if he wins against Joshua, he becomes a massive star, and who knows, maybe this could be a banana skin fight. I think a lot of us have been saying, Joshua, Fury and Wilder, the longer that they go along facing other opponents that we don't necessarily want or need to see, that one of them is going to come unstuck. There is no guarantee that they just keep winning, because boxing is like that. Something can upset the apple cart, you might get caught by something you never saw coming, and it's lights out. So Ruiz Jr., he does have a chance in this fight, but it is uphill. But good luck to him. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.